So, Bertrand, tell me a little bit, first of all, people know Home Retail Group for Argos, but could you tell us a little bit of the context about how you've been digitally transforming the business?
Sure. I guess it's a good example of digital. The Home Retail Group is known for 3 entities, Homebase, Argos, and Habitat. We've sold Homebase, so but the bulk of basically Home Retail is really Argos. It was a fairly challenged business, quite frankly, a few years ago. Before we started the transformation 4 years ago, it was a business that was having -6 to -8% LFL growth for 16 quarters in a row. So wow. Fairly challenged from that point of view with a lot of fixed assets. So you can see where the trajectory of such a business on that front. So there were a few obvious trends. Digital was coming in. There were a few obvious trends as well from a mobile point of view, but also from a fulfillment point of view. And we tried to play into those and to really focus on 4 things that I think are out there. So that's back to 3.5 years ago. And so we had 4 key priorities. The first one was to reposition the channels to a digital future. The second one was to have more choice available faster for our customer. A previous speaker talked about immediacy, which is really one of the things that is at the core of what Argos does. And at the same time, to try to become more universally appealing for our customer base. So we're typically targeting more C2DEs. We try to not alienate them, but at the same time get more ABC1s basically coming in on board as well. And of course, fourth, to manage costs overall, because that was the way to finance the investment that we're planning to make over the next 3-4 years. If I take the first one, which is probably the one you would expect from a retailer that is trying to reposition itself more as a digital player, there are 3 components. The first one was really the digital channels themselves, so apps, mobile, desktop. Knowing that we were not known for our digital assets, for the little story, when I joined Argos 3 years ago, a lot of my friends gave me a lot of slack of saying, are you really joining that catalog business with a little blue pencil and the bingo game in the stores and the numbers you enter into the pad? But it really had the essence, however, of a digital business in the sense that we're not pretending to be a John Lewis. We're not pretending to be a PC World. There is no product to browse around. But at the same time, many of our platforms were not transactional at the time. So we went on that mission to really go and change that. We made a particular focus on mobile to the extent that now, out of a 4 billion business, 2 billion pounds is online, and we have passed the mark of £1 billion being entirely on mobile now. We're the first retailer, I think, in the UK to pass actually the £1 billion on mobile. So that was a big play for us. To do that, we opened some offices in London. We opened some development centers. We attracted to be able to attract some talent, as many of us are doing, but with a real focus on the first 3-4 teams were entirely dedicated to mobile on that dimension. So 1 was really the channels themselves. 2 was the store. And I don't know if many in the audience, you told me, Ruth, last week that you've been shopping with us. So we've repositioned the stores themselves as well, much more as a digital stores, as opposed to just a catalog type of business. To this date, we have about 180 of our stores have been reshaped into a more digital, we're talking about Apple, into a more Apple-esque type of format, where customers come and browse on a tablet instead of a catalog, for all the obvious reasons, but also reshaping all the back end of the stores. The way that our staff interacts with our customers, the way that they get equipped with navigators to really help them on the way, the way that we've changed the logistics behind so that we can serve much faster, because at the core we are really about immediacy. So that has been a second piece of that. And thirdly, the catalog, which we on purpose organizationally embedded into the digital team fairly early on, so that the team was forced to think about, not so much about paper anymore, but more about how do we springboard our customers online? How do we not necessarily show all the products for the sake of them, but do we give an incentive to go online and to check it out? Yep. How do we give an incentive to customers to check the stock online before they make their journey to the store? So we try to push very hard on that. On the second piece, I guess I'll leave it open for the discussion, but the more choice available faster, to me, was equally important. Because the first piece of repositioning the channels in the store is almost a pipeline. It's almost the way our customers traveled with us to some extent. Now we also needed to have a better proposition. So we went a long way on trying to redesign our network of store in a model we call Hubspoke, all the way to being able to serve customers 4 times a day, same-day delivery for a fairly small fee. So that was probably equally important, and similarly to be able to attract a more universal customer base.
So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned there a hub and spoke strategy for stores. What does that actually mean?
So hub and spoke is, when we started this transformation, we had about 800 stores across the UK, and all stores were pretty much created equal. So all store had needed roughly 15,000 square feet, yep. 12,000 type of SKUs, which is very costly when you fight in part against Amazon. It's very costly to have that because you have 800 basically inventory pools across the country. And you need pretty big space, decently big space to be able to compete or to grow. So we reshaped them into that network of hub and spoke indeed, where essentially we organize a network of stores by pools of 5-6 stores, where every 6 store, let's say, would be a hub, acting on behalf of neighboring spokes, so smaller stores. So it's a virtual reconfiguration of the estate. We didn't change the stores themselves. They were still the same Argos stores while we were digitalizing them. But essentially what we did is remove a lot of the slow-moving inventory that was into those little spokes to move it into the hub so that we could put faster-moving items into the spokes. It means that customers had a stronger chance to be served right away when they come into a store, which is what they expect. And at the same time, if we didn't have it, to be able to serve from the neighboring hubs. Then we organized trucks to go, little vans, to go 3 times a day from those hubs to the spokes, so that if we didn't have your product right away, we would effectively ship it to you intraday, to the extent now of being, if you order by 1 p.m., we'll get it by 4. If you order by midnight, we'll get first thing in the morning. The beauty of this was that it allowed us to then add some smaller spokes, some smaller stores that the market didn't expect us to be able to do. When we started this, they expected us to close 25% of our estate because the traditional retail footprint when you're in a challenging world.
Yep.
But on the contrary, we opened actually new stores on the back of it, 5,000 square feet, then 2,000 square feet. We even tried 800 square feet, not too far away in one of the tube stations, because we could serve them from those hubs, basically. On the back of that, we did some partnership with one of our sister company, Homebase, yep. where we put some small spokes into there because we had too much space. So how could we leverage the space and the traffic we have in those Homebase better? So that network of hub and spoke started to be enlarged, yep. and allowing us to target new type of customer base that we couldn't reach before and making it more convenient for our customers. And we made a partnership with Sainsbury, which eventually led to a potential takeover happening very shortly. Exactly the same promise about how can we open some smaller spokes delivered by local hubs basically on the back of that. And the extension of that was, now we have hubs, we have our 5 spokes, we have a bunch of little spokes in between, within partners or ourselves. Well, we have customers as well in between. So what about serving those customers with those vans that are doing the tour anyway, from those stores that are essentially becoming a distribution center, yep. locally. And then we started actually organizing a same-day delivery for our customer, 4 slots a day, all the way to, if you order by 6 p.m., we'll be at your place between 7 and 10, with your local friendly staff store basically coming to your door on that.
So that's a very interesting and different store strategy. You've also done some partnerships, for example, with eBay, having eBay deliveries in stores. Could you explain a bit about that?
Sure. So again, the entire premises of it was how do we leverage some assets that we have? What is it that customers really want to do? A lot of customers want immediacy, they want convenience, they want to pick things on their way back from the tube station or from work. We could have either decided, we are the 3rd largest online retailer in the UK after Amazon and eBay. We could have decided to compete pretty hard against eBay. On the contrary, we reached out to each other of saying, what about getting the deliveries from your merchants into our stores? So as a collection point, as opposed to just, so if a customer doesn't want to just have a home delivery and they want to pick it up at one of our stores, we have presence nationwide, what could we do? We started with a sample of a few stores, a few merchants at first, roughly 50 merchants, extended to 250 merchants. And we worked very hard on making sure that the collection was really sleek as well for eBay customers on the back of it. And now fast forwarded a couple of years ago, further down the line, we have 250,000 merchants on eBay were enabled for click and collect within Argos stores. And now we've announced that we've passed the 5 million transactions basically together across our stores.
Wow, and another kind of figure, I guess, that's really accelerated is mobile. Could you tell us a bit more about what you're doing with your mobile strategy?
Sure. So overall, 4 billion business, 2 billion is online, 30% of the entire business, so 1.2 equivalent now is on mobile. the first thing we did is what I mentioned earlier. It's like the first agile teams we put in place were entirely dedicated to mobile, and almost with a paranoia of it from the very early days. While we had some burning platforms at a lot of other places, we decided still to invest quite aggressively on that front. I think for us it makes sense as well. For everybody it makes sense, but for us, 3 years ago, it made a ton of sense because you're on your way to the store. We needed a collection code and something that was a connector between the digital side and the phygital piece. So we need a connector between the digital side, basically, and the store. So it was a natural extension for us. We have also done something in our store that we call Fast Track Collection. Yep. So we've reshaped the store so that now if you order, if you've paid online and you have basically reserved the item, we're able, our promise to customers is to try to get it within 60 seconds. So again, it's back to the point of not trying to pretend to be a John Lewis. We don't have browsability in the store. We don't have the immersive experience within the store itself. So how can we get in and out very, very fast? Mobile allows us to do that as well because payment is slick, but reservation code is captured on that. Beacons allow you to recognize the customer when they get close to the store as well so that they can easily be there. We know, hey, Ruth, we see you're close by. We already have pre-picked the item for you in the back room. We'll get it to you right away. The fastest I've been able to get is 22 seconds right now in and out of the store, but that's what we're aiming for.
That's pretty good. I like the fact that you managed to do it so fast for people like me who are so impatient that even Amazon Prime isn't quick enough. That's how come I have to come to Argos. Yes. One more question before we throw it open to the audience. You have a digital innovation lab, and in his presentation, Chris was talking about innovation labs, using that as a mechanism to change the business. Is it possible to use an innovation lab to truly change your business?
I think it can be dangerous if you dissociate it too much. For us, we set up, it's not an innovation lab, because I'm nervous about innovation for the sake of it. Yep. To be needs to be attached to the core of the business. To, in our case, for example, a single view of stock is one of, it's not sexy at all, but it's one of the things that really is the blood of our business. Yep. So I don't want to have innovation completely and absolute of that. I want to have it in the framework of what we're trying to do. How can we get stock better perceived by customers? How can we make sure it's at the right place? How can we have 60-second type of collection? How can we have same-day delivery? As long as it's attached to that, yep, then I'm happy to innovate in those spaces. We set up indeed, it's more digital, it's an office basically, but just to attract the right talent with the right agile teams in London. We now have a couple of those. We have another one in Milton Keynes. But we were very careful about being close to where Milton Keynes is close to the Euston line, to be very close to that, 6 minutes away, to really create a spirit where the two are really tied up to each other. I see Matt in the audience. I see him regularly at either in London or in Milton Keynes. So really to try to create that spirit of it as well. And it's not innovation, it's really digital development, okay, in the sense that you have proper UX, you have proper development, you have proper analysts in each of the teams, properly embedded, and they are all attached to the core business in some way. They have room to innovate, obviously, yep, but we try to be very, very close to the business itself.
Okay, so very integrated. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks for the questions.